What's going on, guys? Marco here with Dynasty Nerds, and I am bringing you my start-sit wide receivers for Week 5. All right, I'm going to start with my sits at wide receiver. My first sit at wide receiver is a guy who's kind of underperformed, but he found the end zone last week, and honestly, I think he's a floor play right now. It's one of the reasons why I'm saying sit. In reality, you probably aren't going to sit Brandin Cooks, but he is an enormous fade for me. So I think he's more of a flex 2 this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I know typically when we see the Jacksonville Jaguars, we think it's a great matchup. But the Jaguars have actually been a solid defense. They have not been spectacular, amazing, but they've been a sturdy defense, much better than we have expected. And I think Davis Mills has not taken the step a lot of people were hoping, and the Texans are starting to realize that. We'll see if he can develop over the course of the season. He's a talent that I kind of liked, but until we really see that for sure, Brandin Cooks is probably a flex, maybe a wide receiver 2 week in and week out. And in Week 5, he's more of a flex 2. And if you can put him on your bench, I'm okay doing that against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 5. So if you got specific start sits with Brandin Cooks, drop them below. I'll get to as much as I can. Or you can hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P. All right, then my second sit is a guy who you should be sitting, and really the hype on this guy was absolutely out of control this offseason. It's Gabe Davis. Sure, he's got some of this ankle injury stuff. People are saying maybe that's part of it. He's still seeing tons and tons of playing time. He is not really running very much, he's not really running less routes than a lot of the wide receivers. He's 10 routes, I believe, behind Stephon Diggs, and that's without playing one of the games. Gabe Davis is who we thought he was 2 years ago. Not last year, and the reality, or this offseason, the reality is he's a wide receiver 3. You know, sometimes maybe if he gets into the end zone a couple of times, he'll get to that wide receiver 2 range. He's a wide receiver 3 just consistently. In Dynasty Leagues, I am moving Gabe Davis right now. Find the managers who still believe and sell. For specifics, drop them below. Hit me up on Twitter. I'm happy to answer any and all questions. But Gabe Davis against a Pittsburgh Steelers defense that has been beatable just doesn't look like he is going to have a breakout season. He doesn't look like he's going to have a breakout game in Week 5, even though this defense has been beatable. He's just probably not going to see the opportunity. He's running routes. He's just not really getting open. He doesn't really look very explosive. I think if anything, it's going to be a Stephon Diggs, a slot wide receiver, and I say a slot wide receiver because we don't know if McKenzie's going to be there. We don't know if Khalil Shakir is going to be there. And maybe James Cook gets more involved, Devin Singletary. I just don't think Gabe Davis is an important part to this offense, and I don't think his talent is commanding the ball. So Gabe Davis for Week 5 especially is a fade, but ultimately in Dynasty Leagues, if you can sell, do it. All right, I'm going to get to my starts, but before I do, I want to remind you, you can get 15% off the GM tool, joining the Nerd Herd, get all of the access to everything you could possibly want by clicking the link in the description below. You'll get 15% off, or you can use promo code 14P, and you can tell them I sent you. Thank you guys if you sign up with that promo code. It helps me out, helps me do a lot more of these videos for you. Let's jump into it. Let's talk wide receiver starts for Week 5. All right, so my number one guy, and he's a weekly start at this point. He is a weekly start at this point. Even with a down week last week, Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel had a down week last week. The Commanders had a down week last week. It's an offense that throws the ball a ton, and even though Curtis Samuel didn't put up huge numbers in Week 4, he still led this team in targets. He is leading this team in opportunities. He is second in the NFL, I believe, amongst all players in opportunities. Cooper Kupp did officially surpass him on Monday night. And what we've seen from Curtis Samuel is he is important to this team. He is not only Carson Wentz's safety blanket, but he is his go-to option, even with Terry McLaurin, even with Jahan Dotson. And so we don't really know if Jahan Dotson's going to be fully healthy in Week 5, which just gives another opportunity for Curtis Samuel to get more and more volume. He is one of those guys who are always worried about injury, but I've been telling you, juice this orange. As long as he is healthy, he needs to be in your lineups. All right, the next guy I want to talk about is Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett has proven that in this Geno Smith-led offense, which has been way more high-functioning than we had ever expected, it is an offense that's got a little motor to it. Sure, it's not the most impressive offense, but for a Geno Smith-led offense, It's been surprising. Geno Smith has supported Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf now this season, and Tyler Lockett seems to be the safety blanket, while DK seems to be the guy who is more of the possession or I got to score now kind of guy. And Tyler Lockett, being the safety blanket, is in PPR leagues a flex wide receiver 3, maybe a wide receiver 2 some weeks, depending on the matchup. And in this one, he goes against the New Orleans Saints, which is a tougher matchup, but he's probably not going to be seeing the top coverage, especially coming out of a week where DK Metcalf put up almost 150 yards. So this is a matchup where he is going to see the lesser of the best coverage for the New Orleans Saints. He is getting the ball often enough to provide value for your team. I love Tyler Lockett as a roster hold that you had early in the season that you can now plug in and play almost every single week as long as he doesn't have the toughest of matchups. Tyler Lockett against the New Orleans Saints is a start for me. You could expect flex plus value. Now, if you've got any other questions, I didn't talk about a wide receiver that you really need to know about, drop your questions below. Hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P. Use the promo code 14P or the link below to get 15% off the Nerd Herd and the GM tool and everything like that. Don't forget to be kind and do good, and I will see you next time.